Today we get a chance to talk to Carl Shotsberger, Paul's incredibly gifted son. Truly a chip off the old block. This interview follows our usual format, but also incorporates some musical pieces referenced in the conversation. Take a listen to discover the moments that directed Carl's life from his early lessons and exposure to various kinds of music to his most recent work with the International House of Prayer in Kansas City, and now teaching music lessons himself.
Welcome back to Moments That Matter. I'm talking with Carl Shotsberger today. You might notice that our last names are the same. As it turns out, he's my son of 31 years, of whom I am quite proud. Scott Williams and I thought it might be fun to change things up a bit from our usual format and have a semi-concert for a podcast. I say semi because we will still do an interview, but probably most of the time will be devoted to listening to Carl play. As everyone who knows about this podcast and listens on a regular basis, the name of the podcast reflects the notion that there come along moments in our lives that give us direction and redirection, and those moments can come in many forms. I think my son's history with music and playing instruments is pretty interesting and reflects some of those moments, so I'm going to talk to him a bit about that and then give him a chance to play for you. Hey, Carl, thanks for joining us on Moments That Matter.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
So maybe we can start with a little bit of history on, your history with music and that sort of thing and instruments. You actually play a number of different instruments. Can you give us an idea of what you've played in your life and whether it's long-term or short-term, doesn't matter?
Sure. So I started playing piano when I was, I think, 4. You could confirm probably if that's true.
I believe that's true.
And took lessons from age 4 to 10, so 6 years. Somewhere in the middle of that, took flute lessons for a couple months, and I don't remember anything except spitting pellets of rice from the tip of my tongue onto a wall to try to practice my blowing, I guess. But don't remember the flute, but stuck with the piano till I was 10, and I didn't enjoy lessons. I did not enjoy practicing. And really playing in general, I think. But I always enjoyed music. I knew that. But I think you and Mom finally let me quit when I was 10. And I didn't really play music at all until I was 14, at which point I, kind of out of nowhere to me, I had this bubbling interest and passion to learn about music and the kind of the why behind the what. Why do things sound good, and how do you compose, and how do you make songs? And I got really interested in the piano all of a sudden at age 14, and I think I had some of the muscle memory from the lessons, but I had to kind of start over, and I taught myself a lot of not only how to play but music theory, kind of using songs that I liked. And then from there, around age 14, 15, picked up the guitar and learned that pretty quickly. And I missed the drums. I took drum lessons when I was 12 and didn't play drums for quite a while, I think in high school and college years, but more recently in my 20s, kind of picked those back up again too. So and then bass. There's just because I know how to play the guitar, the bass kind of found its way into my repertoire too. I was playing with some worship bands that have needed bass players over the years, and so that's been really fun too. So I don't know how many instruments that is, but
a few,
a handful. Yeah.
And what would you say is your primary instrument?
Primary instrument these days is the piano. It's my go-to if I want to play something. And I've been giving lessons to a student for the past year or so on the piano. So I would say the piano. I'll just improvise and see where it goes.
Yeah, and speaking of lessons, yeah, I'll fill in, in terms of Carl's history that we had him in Suzuki. That was the piano method. And as he said, he didn't really enjoy practicing, and we didn't enjoy making him practice, and that's why we finally kind of quit on that. But I'll relay a specific memory that I have, and actually it's a number of different memories altogether, but one particular incident, and that was that, time to time, all of the students were required to play. They had to do recitals, and it had to be in front of people, and so recitals for Mom and me were terrifying because, number one, you hadn't practiced that much. But number two, you almost refused to bring music up to the piano with you when you would have the recital. And we would just be like, okay, we're just bracing, for the train wreck that's going to happen. And inevitably, you did amazingly well. And so obviously there was this ability to kind of absorb music in a relatively short amount of time. It's just that Suzuki didn't know what to do with you. I think that the method just did not allow for that. So let's fast forward to high school. And as you said, picking the keyboard back up again, my memory, and you can confirm whether this is true, is that it was Grandma Alice who asked you what you wanted for Christmas, and you said a keyboard, and we didn't know why. It was like a complete surprise to us. Do you remember that at all?
Sort of. Well, I remember leading up to that, all of a sudden gaining an interest in music. And I think up to that point, I was starting to, or not up to that point, but as of that time, I was starting to look on the internet for chords, and how to play certain songs that I knew and that I liked. But I didn't have an instrument around, so I was kind of just absorbing it, but nowhere to really go with it. And I remember actually sitting in church when I was probably 13 or 14 in Ukraine, and whatever church we were going to, and sitting in the pew, and on the pamphlet or whatever the paper they gave out, I was drawing the notes of a piano, mm-hmm. and so I could kind of visualize the piano, and I could kind of try to string together some musical ideas that I had, but I didn't have a piano, so that was, I think I just happened to start to kind of discover this passion I had for music around that time. And then Grandma Alice asked what I wanted, and I was like, well, I really need a piano right now because I don't have an instrument, and I have all this interest in one. So, mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was a complete shock for us. And a couple of other things that I think kind of also brought that along. One is, I think you bought a theory book, maybe Music Theory for Dummies, I'm not sure, but at any rate, you had a theory book, you taught yourself theory, and then you kind of got into recording a bit at home, like recording friends and stuff like that. Your playing then kind of worked into the recording.
Right. Well, it was all part of I guess the big picture for me was the creation of music, and the creation happens on multiple levels, and I was interested in all of it. I was interested in the songwriting, or even backing up, before that, like the music theory and why do songs sound good. And then, the execution of it, the playing, and then the recording is another step in the creative process, kind of after the songwriting and mm-hmm. the crafting has happened. That's equally as important and interesting to me. So I was kind of interested in all of that whole process all of a sudden, all at the same time. So I think that's what got me interested in recording.
And after you graduated from high school in 2007, then you went off to college in Illinois, and that college had a particular strength with music and in particular music recording. So that became your major. But you had other experiences as well, because you were playing. You played as a part of a Beatles cover band, which I thought was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So what were your musical experiences at that point, like in college and even beyond?
In college specifically, I was playing in the praise band at church, and I think there was kind of a rotation of bands. So I think I played every other week or something like that. Played acoustic guitar, I think. And then, there was the Beatles cover band, which we played probably at most 2 concerts a year. We did, I think we played 3 shows in total. But that was a lot of fun. I played guitar and piano in that. There was, my friend started his own kind of worship band, but he wrote the songs for it. And he asked me to be in that. So I played keyboards in that. But it was a very musical school in general. There were a lot of music-centered classes. There's one class I took called Rock Music History. And it actually involved being assigned roles in a band, and you were given a song or two to practice and play to practice for a week, and then at a certain date you would play it in front of everybody with your band. And it kind of explored the history of rock music, starting from the 50s and then all the way up to the present day. So that was something else that was super fun. And so there was a lot of music going on at school all the time, which was really cool.
Yeah, and also along about 2008, John Mayer came out with his video, In the Light, and that was fairly revelation producing for you and me and a good friend of ours. And it just kind of, it's like one thing after another, as far as I could see. These influences just kept, sort of building and building and building. And then after college, 2011, you went off to a 6-month internship at International House of Prayer in Kansas City. And a 6-month internship is like that, 3-hour tour, for Gilligan's Island. Because
That's
6 months, 6 months has turned into 9 years.
Yes.
And so there you are. You're at IHOP, Kansas City, the other IHOP. And so tell us a little bit about the musical experiences there, like with the prayer rooms.
Yeah, well, like you said, I didn't expect to stay here this long. But one reason I have is because this is a very musical place. And I found that there were many outlets for me to be musical, and one of the main things here is actually what the whole International House of Prayer is really centered around is the prayer room, which is open 24/7, and there's over 20 individual worship teams that cycle through. They do 2-hour sets throughout the day, and so there's tons of worship teams here, and there's worship and prayer happening 24/7 in the prayer room. And it didn't take long for me to kind of get plugged in with a couple of the worship leaders here who were doing sets in the prayer room, and to jump in playing keys or playing guitar. You do have to go through an audition process here. So I think I'm approved definitely for keys, drums, and I've filled in on other instruments. I think I'm approved. Well, maybe it's just keys and drums actually, but I've filled in on other. Once you get to know people, you kind of get asked to play, and that's been something that's been really fun over the 9 years I've been here. I've done it less in the past 3 years or so since my wife and I started having kids. There's less, time to go off and do a 2-hour set, in the prayer room, but that's definitely a central part of why I'm here.
And thank you for having our grandchildren. We really appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
can you talk just a moment about the International Prayer Room, the Russian sets that you've done in the past?
Yeah, so there is the primary prayer room, which is kind of what everyone thinks about when they think of IHOP KC. But there's also a secondary prayer room called the All Nations Prayer Room, and they have the same kind of 2-hour blocks type of system as the other prayer room does, but they have them in many different languages. So each 2-hour block has its language that it's in. And when I was really active with that prayer room a few years back, I think they had 9 individual languages. So there was Russian, which is the worship sets I was in, was the Russian sets, and then there were Arabic and Spanish and Korean and Portuguese, so there's all these different languages, which is it's just a super cool way to get the entire world involved in what IHOP KC is doing. So I did do the Russian worship sets for a good number of years and just kind of played whatever instrument they needed and got to, kind of be around Russian speakers and that whole thing. So that was another very cool outlet.
And was the worship music particularly different for that?
Not particularly. It was mostly Western or English worship songs that were translated into Russian. Even in a lot of the Russian-speaking world, that is, in a lot of churches, that is predominantly what they use in church. And there were a couple songs that we had in our repertoire that were, maybe written by the worship leader in Russian. But it was predominantly like Hillsong or, Bethel songs that were translated into Russian.
Yeah. All right. And then just asking about the future, do you have any musical aspirations for the future?
I'm really enjoying giving lessons right now. What I'm able to do in terms of the available time that I have is pretty limited these days. Mm-hmm. But the lessons is cool because I can kind of fit it in any time of the week, and it's a musical outlet for me, and I enjoy teaching too. And so it helps me learn, like if I'm it's been really fun actually because my student has certain songs that he has been wanting to learn on the piano. So as I'm teaching him how to play, I ask him to bring me his favorite songs, and a lot of these songs are songs from TV shows or films or video games even, and there's a lot of really amazing music in those kinds of media. And he'll bring those songs to me, and then I'll have to learn them so that I can teach them to him. And that's been really fun. It's been really challenging to learn and then to teach like that. But I like to use the songs that he brings to me as teaching tools. And if he brings to me a song that's in a minor scale, we can get more familiar with the minor scale, and we can learn the chords that the song uses and things like that. So that for me is that's what I'm enjoying right now. I would eventually like to get back into recording some more, but right now it's the lessons. This one's fun. This is a song that is from a Mario video game that I taught my student.
I think you are a natural teacher, so it makes sense that you're enjoying that.
Well, I come by it honestly, don't I?
I hope so. And I, talking about the student bringing you something and then you have to learn it, that reminds me actually of you starting the drum lessons. And your teacher asked you, what do you want to learn? And you said the drum solo from the end on Abbey Road. Do you remember
Oh, yeah.
that? Yeah.
I never would have until you said it, but yeah.
And that was fascinating to you. I mean, I guess he went and learned it, and then he played it, and then you played it, and it was actually
right.
pretty cool.
That's
yeah,
right.
You had that was a very brief moment, for those drum lessons, because literally we started them and then we moved to Ukraine, and there wasn't really much to it, but somehow it really produced a lot of fruit for you, in high school and now even, with the different sets and that sort of thing. So it's just kind of cool how that worked out.
Well, to this day, I would say there's nothing like beating a drum. Something is so satisfying about just taking a stick and whacking a drum. You can play the piano and guitar all you want, but I love the drums. I'm not especially strong on the drums compared to piano and guitar, I feel, but man, it's so much fun.
It's like that song, I don't want to work, I just want to bang on the drum all day.
That's not right. Yep. Can I add one maybe piece of advice for whoever this will be helpful listening to this? I've found with music, if there's anybody out there who's wanting to learn an instrument, and it seemed daunting, or it seems, the practice is like pulling teeth, and I mean, that's all true. I want to say this. First of all, you're never too aged, to learn an instrument. It's the golden years of being young or whatever. Like, it is easier when you're young, but don't think that they've passed, because anybody can learn an instrument. And the second thing is, it's really important, I would say, to learn music that you enjoy, and to not just to kind of grind out the scales and the repetition and stuff like that, but start from what you enjoy and learn from there. And I would just offer that piece of advice to anybody who is wanting to learn, but it seems daunting. Just stick with what you like and use what you like as a teaching tool, and you'll find that the enjoyment of it will help you get somewhere.
Well, thank you for your time today, Carl. It's been a delight. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. This has been fun.
Thank you for joining us this second season of Moments That Matter. It's an honor to share the stories and the moments from those who have blessed our lives and the lives of countless others. Be sure you've subscribed to Moments That Matter, and we look forward to being back in the studio in the new year with new interviews and material. Until then, may God richly bless you, and may you have a greater awareness of the moments that give our lives fullness and great meaning. Thank you, and God bless.